Good morning, PTNI's Daily Show. Alan here, COO of ICE. Going to talk about taxes today. I apologize if it's hard to hear me. It's storming like hell here, and I'm out in the mobile studio. So we'll see how the audio quality is on this when I go to make the podcast later. And if it doesn't sound too well, I'll re-record this later tonight. I've put off talking about this for a while, mainly because we were actively in tax season, and I wanted to wait until it was done with, and also because it can be a very boring topic, but I think it's very important, especially for those of you with a side hustle or running your own clinic, managing your own clinic, or maybe you have another business completely unrelated to PT that you run on the side. Maybe your spouse or significant other has some sort of home business or self-employed business, and taxes can be a real bummer. As some of you have just finished, taxes were due 2 weeks ago. If you didn't know that, hop on that right away because you're late now. You'll need to file that extension. Every year, for about the past 5 years, taxes have gotten easier and easier for me, and I want to share some tips and tricks that I use, some software that I use that have made it significantly easier every year. I watch people struggle every year carrying those crates of papers into the tax office, waiting months and months and months for their refund or to find out if they're getting one, and just generally having a miserable experience every year, January through April, with their taxes. And so taxes should be something that you work on throughout the year, right? It should be kind of a slow marathon, not this crazy sprint the first 2 weeks of April where you try and get it all in. I was talking with our good friend Mitch Babcock the other day at the gym about his recent tax experience, having a couple different 1099 income streams and his own clinic practice with self-employment and all the hardships he's gone through recently dealing with taxes this year. And I thought I'd jump on here and share some tips and tricks and software to make it easier for you to do it next year. So in the Army we had a saying, work smarter, not harder. So if you find yourself working too hard, if you feel like you're spending too much time on taxes, then you're working too hard and you need to start working smarter. We also had a saying, there's two types of Army Rangers, smart Rangers and strong Rangers. So strong Rangers do the same thing over and over again, and they get really strong at doing stuff inefficiently. And you don't want to be a strong Ranger. Sometimes it's good to be a smart Ranger, right? So the first thing we'll talk about is a 1099 form. And this, some of you, you're thinking, Alan, this is basic as hell, and good for you, but for most it's not. So I want to start with the basics and go from there. So a 1099-MISC for miscellaneous, that's what it stands for, is the form that you're going to file if you are considered self-employed. So if you've got your own side hustle, your own business, or if you work for an employer and you aren't a traditional W-2 employee. So if you make more than $600 a year this way, which will be probably any of you that get a 1099, you need to file this form. This is kind of the form where you're considered to be an independent contractor, whether or not you actually go to a full-time job every day this way or not. Traditionally, you get paid this way because you have another full-time job with benefits, and you're just getting wages this way. The benefit of a 1099 employee is that you usually make more cash. You usually only make cash, for that matter. Usually a position without benefits. The negative of this is that what you probably don't realize if you work traditionally as a W-2 employee is that your employer pays half of your taxes. So traditionally about 15% of your cash goes to taxes. As a W-2 employee, half of that is covered by your employer as kind of a hidden benefit that we don't really consider day to day. If you are a 1099 independent contractor, you need to cover that 15% or so yourself, all on your own, and you need to budget for that. Whether you budget for that each check, monthly, or over the course of a year, you need to have that in your budget. So if you're making $10,000 a year as a 1099 employee, you need to prepared to sock away at least the bare minimum $1,500 for those taxes, because they're not going to be deducted from your check. And what I see a lot when I talk to people is they wait until taxes are due and they haven't budgeted for it, and they have this big what we'll call an oh shit moment, where they realize that they owe 15% of the income they made the previous year as taxes, and sometimes they don't have it, and there can be a penalty for that, up to 8% penalty for not being able to pay that when it's due. Technically, according to the IRS rule, if you make more than $5,000 a year as a 1099 employee, you're supposed to file this form called a 1040-ES, where you pay that tax quarterly. I don't know how well they enforce that, or if they enforce that at all. I've certainly never paid it quarterly, but according to the rule, you're supposed to pay it quarterly. But at the very least, you'll need to pay it annually, and you'll need to have that budgeted out, whether you put that money away in a separate account month by month, or whether you plan to have it ready by the end of the tax year. There's a form, a Schedule-SE for self-employment tax, that you can pull down from the internet, right from the IRS website. It will run you through the calculations to determine how much tax you owe. You can either do that, paycheck by paycheck, or that's definitely the form you'll need at the end of the year to find out how much tax you owe. And some of you may have a CPA or somebody you use already, and you figure all this out. But I'm going to talk a little bit about some software that can help you figure this out too, to cut down on that expense of paying an accountant or a tax preparer. So talking about expenses, how to track expenses, what expenses are relevant for taxes. Again, here, work smarter, not harder. Be a smart ranger, not a strong ranger. Use technology to track this stuff. I'll talk about a couple apps here in a second, but things you can expense are, if you can justify it, you can expense mileage. So if you're driving a lot, definitely keep track of that mileage. You can't double dip here, so if you are on a work trip and you take an Uber from the airport to your hotel, you can't expense both that Uber and the mileage. So don't double dip here. That's a quick way to get audited. If you are working from a home office space, you can deduct the square footage of that home office. Any relevant supplies like printer paper and ink toner, that sort of thing. Health insurance premiums, a lot of people don't know that they can deduct their health insurance premium. So if you don't have it through another job and you pay for it through the marketplace out of pocket, you can deduct that. Continuing education is a big one that people I see often don't expense. As PTs, except for 5 states in the country, you're required to have continuing education to maintain your license. Therefore, it's kind of considered part of the natural process of working your job, and therefore is a deductible expense. Cell phone, some people say don't deduct your cell phone. Some people say do. I say go for it. Just have an estimate of what % do you think you use your phone for that 1099 job compared to personal stuff. And certainly if you're doing a lot of digital marketing or something on Instagram or Facebook, then you're spending a lot of time on your mobile device. That's for that 1099 job. Travel, of course, flights, Ubers, hotels, car rentals, parking, tolls, all that sort of stuff is stuff to keep. Fees, dues, and subscriptions is something, again, I don't see people deduct very often. So if you pay, like I pay for a terabyte of Dropbox, $10 a month, that's a subscription you can deduct. Certainly your APTA membership or any other professional organization that you're a member of can be deducted. Again, kind of like continuing education, it's just a part of being a member of the profession. Meals. The rule here is take 50% of any relevant deductible meals here, and that's the number you want to go with. So if you are taking, a client out or some sort of work function meal, you can certainly add all that up, but you're going to take about half that number, and that's the number you're going to use. And it's important to remember with all these deductions for expenses that it's not one-to-one. It's not $1 of expense takes $1 off your tax burden. There's a lot more into the IRS calculations than that. So don't think that you're trying to hit one-to-one. You're trying to go above that to lessen your tax burden. Software that I use, I've talked about Expensify on here before, but I can't say enough about Expensify. It's both a mobile app and a web client. The mobile app, I can't flip this around and show you the mobile app, but I encourage you to play with it. It's free to download and start to play with. What it lets you do is take a paper receipt, and it's called Smart Scan technology. You take a picture of it. It digitizes the receipt. It pulls down, the header and address and stuff from the top. It sends you a digital copy, and it puts it on your Expensify account. So anytime you have a paper receipt, like if you're out at a restaurant or something, snap a picture with Expensify. It goes to your Expensify account, and then you can throw that thing in the garbage. And when you go back and look at it online, it's got all the relevant information, the name of the place. It tries to categorize it, and you can change the category, but it will categorize it as food, and it'll go under meals. And all the other expenses you use with Expensify will get categorized by that. And what it starts to build for you over the course of the year is an expense report for deductions for your taxes, which is really nice, because when it's tax time, instead of carrying in that huge crate of paper, you've got this nice 2-page summary report ready to go, just ready to throw into your tax form or give to your accountant. What's nice about Expensify is it can have a central administrator. So if you're a clinic manager or owner, you can actually have your folks get their own Expensify accounts, send their expenses to you, and you can actually reimburse them through Expensify, and you can start to cut down on the cost of the back office burden of having somebody do all that stuff, or giving it out to a third-party CPA or something like that. So you can start to cut down on your own costs by using software like Expensify. It's $6.67 a month for the Pro version, or $5 a month for the subscription for a year. So it's totally worth it. I use it. I tried to bring it out here to show you guys my 2-page summary from 2017. I only used Expensify in 2017. It built my expenses for me throughout the year. I didn't keep any physical paperwork, but the rain caught it. I've just got 2 wet, soggy pages now. So highly recommend Expensify. The other one is new. I just started playing with it. It's called MileIQ. This is great not only for mileage if you are driving a lot for whatever your 1099 job is, but I think it's great too for those of you in home health. You pull up the app, you hit go, it starts tracking your mileage. You can add in parking, tolls, gas, that sort of thing along the way, and it'll categorize each trip, and much like Expensify, builds you a mileage report so that you don't have a box full of gas receipts or oil change receipts or one of those paper mileage log. All right, I see Will Butler's on here. I'm going to plug Will Butler here in a second. Will says Everlance is another good one, does a lot of what you're talking about for expenses. So maybe check out Everlance. So that's it. Work smarter, not harder. Be a smart ranger, not a strong ranger. Keep on top of this stuff and use technology so that it's this slow, easy process throughout the year, so that when tax time comes, all you have to do is log into your Expensify account, your MileIQ account, maybe your Everlance account, pull down your expenses, and hand that to your accountant, or if you do it yourself, plug it into whatever software you use, and then it's a lot less stressful. My taxes were done sometime in January, and I feel bad for those of you who were really, really struggling the past couple weeks trying to get it all done before the deadline. If you have questions about finance stuff, Will Butler is on here right now. He's a PT and a finance guy down in Ohio. Highly recommend you reach out to Will Butler. Our other good friend Joe Renke is the CEO of FitBucks, and while he's more on the student loan side of things, he's also a finance guru. So reach out to one of those two guys if you have more detailed questions, or if you want to establish a relationship, an ongoing relationship for financial help. This weekend, first weekend in a while, not a lot of courses going on. We had 5 2 weekends ago and 3 this past weekend. So spent a lot of time on the computer like Neo in the Matrix. Looking forward to being able to get outside this weekend. Monday, Persistent Pain Management Online with Justin starts. Couple spots left in that cohort. Can't say enough about that class. 8-week crash course into all things persistent pain, both the theory as well as applicable treatment options in the clinic. And then May 19th and 20th, we have 2 courses going on. Rehab of the Injured Runner with Jason London, Running Guru, down in Blacksburg, Virginia. And also that weekend we have cervical spine management with the wonderful Jess Davis. Got to hang out with Jess and her family this past weekend as her stepdaughter graduated from University of Michigan. Wonderful PT and clinician and educator. She'll be down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina with our good friend Zach Morgan for cervical spine management. So for those and more, check out ice.physio, check out Expensify, check out MileIQ, and maybe check out Everlance. I'll certainly take a look at that per Will Butler's recommendation. So, work smarter, not harder. Be a smart ranger, not a strong ranger, and have a wonderful day. Thanks, guys.